CargoWise Landside is deeply committed to revolutionizing landside logistics. With a complete enterprise system built for modern trucking and container drayage operators that includes proven drayage transportation management, digital rate and quote management, real-time container track and tracing, and on-demand truck, trailer, and container storage. Excellence in container drayage starts with the right software. Enhance transportation management, optimize shipment execution, and improve intermodal business operations with Trinium TMS, Draymaster, GeoStamp Track, and SecureSpace. To learn more, please visit cargowise.com/landside.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to TPM Today, the February 14th episode. So that's Valentine's Day for those of you who celebrate it. Hope you're all having a fantastic day with your loved ones. But first, we have some logistics and technology to talk about. Have a fantastic guest for you today. Really excited to have him on. He's someone who I've known for a while. Very pertinent topic, very related to TPM. We'll talk in a bit with him. But speaking of TPM, just wanted to say, if you have not registered, we're 15 days out. So probably want to get on that fairly soon. If you have not registered yet, you can use the code that's scrolling across the screen, EJ20TPM, for 20% off a new registration. I highly encourage you to do that because you need to join the industry that is going to be on site in Long Beach, March 2nd through 5th. It is an amazing event. It's the 25th anniversary. There's so much going on this year. I can't even tell you. You will not regret it. So that's my pitch. Obviously, I'm going to be leading, last check, 12 different sessions this year. So very excited for all of them, honestly. I've had prep calls for most, and they're all going to be fantastic. So join me in Long Beach with the rest of the industry. And again, 20% off if you haven't registered yet. Right after that, in April, we have another event. The JOC Break Bulk and Project Cargo Conference in New Orleans is happening. I will be there as well. Definitely not as big as TPM, but just as important for that segment of the industry. I will be leading some technology-focused programming there. It's a fantastic event. If you've never been before and you're in those areas or you're wanting to learn more about those, there's really no better place to be. So definitely sign up. As soon as you signed up for TPM, just go ahead and sign up for Break Bulk as well. And if you need a code, just let me know. Ping me. You know where to reach me. So that's less than that's about 2 months away. This past week, I, as well as seemingly every other single person in software and logistics, was at Manifest in Las Vegas this past week. Great event. I spoke on a couple panels, one about AI, which was absolutely everywhere. Every single session in person seemed to be talking about AI, whether it was real, whether it was not real, whether it was somewhere in the middle. Unbelievable discussions about AI. The show floor, the exhibition floor was huge. I mean, like ludicrously massive this year. Got to talk to a ton of different vendors, a ton of different players in the space. It was a fantastic event. I'm really glad I went, and kudos to the Manifest team for growing that one year after year. I'll be talking to my guest in a second about Manifest because he was there as well. So with no further ado, I'm not doing news of the week this week. There's lots going on. Tariffs, it's going to be outdated by the end of the show. So I'm not going to address any of that stuff. There's lots going on. The new liner alliances are in play. All of this stuff we're going to be talking about at TPM. So instead of talking about it in 30 seconds, get it past the TPM and we'll talk about it for 4 days. And that gives me more time to talk to my guest this week, who's Kevin Valsi, CEO of a company called OpenTrack. OpenTrack is a visibility provider and more in our space. I've had lots of different visibility providers on this show, but not Kevin. So I'm really excited to talk to him about what OpenTrack is and kind of the space it occupies in this industry. Kevin, welcome to the show. Before we get into OpenTrack, Give people a little bit of your background before you founded or co-founded OpenTrack.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, Eric. I feel like it's been a long time coming, and I'm really excited to have the chat today. Yeah, as far as background, so my co-founder Martin and I have been building logistics technology really for well over a decade now together, which is pretty amazing. And I think really, maybe one of the underrated aspects of continuity of team is that we've been able to sort of learn and observe from where the market has been at, both in terms of really where the technology was at, but in terms of the market perception and how things have evolved on really on both the supply and demand sides. And so previously, so we started Cargomatic prior to OpenTrack. Martin is also the co-founder engineer that built Cargomatic, and I was basically met him and the other original co-founders, and I immediately invested, and I was a pre-seed, pre-product, investor really from like one conversation with them about what they were building, and that relationship has really flourished over a long period of time. I actually went and joined Cargomatic full time as the head of growth, and really got kind of my tuition in ocean freight, really in drayage primarily. So during that experience, which I think is really critical for founders in our space to be in the seat, doing it directly for a significant period of time. I was doing sales, operations, helping to build the product and to really make sure it captures the needs to serve the drayage market, and to really learn about ocean, which absolutely fascinated us, and develop kind of our core thesis on really the need for visibility. And so back then, it was a really visceral kind of experience, both at our own company and at everyone that we would visit, to see to go in and look at drayage operations primarily, or freight brokerage operations, forwarder operations that are dealing with eventually the drayage portion, and to see just the struggle and the pain of operations teams. And so the one thing we noticed, we were like visiting all these offices, and we're like, man, why is the operations team so stressed out? Like, in person in the office. And then, later on, why is our team so stressed out, dealing with drayage operations? And so it had a huge impact. And, like many things in logistics, the more you dig into it, you realize how pervasive and deeply rooted these issues are. And the ones that have persisted for so long are often the most difficult to solve. And so we really found that, the complexity of what we'll talk about is visibility. And again, this really requires like a lengthy definition and, describing exactly what we're talking about. Basically, the core problem of getting timely and accurate data on the one hand, responding to incidents and managing things that have impact, both up and down, the lack of the ability to be proactive when disruptions are coming, just created that stress. And we saw, then we realized, well, that stress is shared across so many different companies, really not just the drayage companies or, the freight brokers or the forwarders, but by the BCOs, the warehouse staff that's ready for a container that might not get there, to, trucking companies, of course, feel it tremendously, intermodal trucking, and sort of on and on. And, that really informed our core thesis. And, one of the things maybe that we'll talk about, like kind of differentiation and stuff like that. But one of the things that really persisted was that, that core thesis that we stuck to. And I don't think we underestimated the depth of the problem. And I think we really built a solution that captures that depth, and maybe the only solution that's fit for really large logistics companies with a really high level of scrutiny that are still interacting with that. So if anything, we've continued, since 2017, we started OpenTrack, and we've just continued to double down on the core thesis with a relentless pursuit of, in particular, data accuracy, but deeply understanding the real issues and delivering solutions that travel and give companies the ability to actually take action. but also
yeah, I mean, I think you're sort of describing a bit of what OpenTrack is and does, and I referenced it before. What's the target market for OpenTrack, and what, like, in terms of those operational difficulties or stresses, what would you say? Can you distill it down to like one or two or three things? Probably not three. We don't have time for three. One or two things that really stuck out from that were sort of the cause of that operational stress?
Yeah, I think basically, for a very long period of time, the only way to get consistently the right answer was actually not from reading or receiving the data. And so back then, it was actually far more challenging than it is today to get access to the data and to have some structure to make sense of it. So that has really progressed and evolved.
Yep.
But the same problem has persisted in that even when you have access, most of our customers have access to all of the data available, especially large logistics companies. They have all the API connections, they have, all of the access, the relationships at the carriers, and yet they still choose us to solve this very deep and complicated problem. And, if I had to just distill it down to a high level, what you found was it's really only veteran operations team, super seasoned people. They recognize certain patterns. They understand deeply the many thousands of idiosyncrasies at these data providers, trends in, for example, what happens during transshipment for a particular ocean carrier. What happens when you have an arrival at the anchoring area and there's 7 vessels waiting during peak season,
Yep.
in some years past. And so really, like, the problem was that you could only get those answers with a fantastic veteran operations team. But the problem was when you have a fantastic veteran operations team, you don't want them going and hunting down this data 24/7. They can do amazing things other than that low value task.
Right.
And so, we decided if we committed to really solving this end to end, so OpenTrack is an end to end container visibility platform. I'll explain what that means. And, the many varying definitions of visibility on several different dimensions, which I think, has added to the confusion. But to deliver, basically just get the right answer. And so what we found was, the depth of the solution is highly underrated and sort of under publicized. And that's really what matters. And, to get the right answer all the time has, traditionally been that function. And what it took was, working on 8 years now of hardcore software development and the relentless pursuit of solving it, and really just tens of thousands of micro innovations, to notice a gap, to fix it completely, to recognize
no silver
patterns.
bullet. Yeah.
Yeah, but the result is something that works like magic. And so that was always the result. Every tech company that I've been a part of previously, I only joined when I felt like the product worked like magic and had undeniable value. And so that's what we've strived to do with our platform.
So you're serving primarily LSPs, and that was a conscious choice. So that's an interesting kind of part of the market, because a lot of visibility providers have targeted BCOs or shippers as their primary kind of customer focus. Why focus on the LSP versus the BCO?
Yeah, so a couple of things here. Nowadays, the platform, we do really have a wide and diverse customer base.
Yeah.
I think the differentiator is those large logistics companies, and to be more specific, to have global adoption and real implementation globally on a huge scale is really the differentiation that, the market has kind of told us. And so, today we have some of the largest logistics companies of all categories, the largest North American drayage carrier, the largest MUSCC, so on and so forth. But in addition, some of the largest software platforms. And so, companies like the largest international TMS platform, we have a native integration with and power all of their ocean visibility, and so on and so forth. And so really, it's become, adopted, but the approach I think was unique in a way, and I'll explain that we started with the largest logistics companies and we built the product to their intensely high standards of expectations. Mm-hmm. And basically we thought, if we really put in the long and hard work and relentless focus to solve this for the best in the industry with the highest level of scrutiny, they would bring things up that no one else, would bring up. Very nuanced, small things with why they think this interpretation of the data was incorrect, or that we noticed, this is probably a better way to do it. And we just listened to them and, repeatedly innovated to build those solutions. But I think, the broader conversation, when we had this kind of, rush of logistics tech, maybe in the 21-22 era, or maybe shortly before that, and, a lot of funding, a lot of ideas, a lot of very aggressive marketing, to be totally honest, and so on and so forth. We sort of lost sight of that, and we had some companies, I think, that may have underestimated, quite frankly, the logistics companies. And so, there's several high profile examples of that. So we took the opposite approach, which is difficult because you could easily fail. So, we started with the biggest, highest scrutiny customers, and we could have easily failed, right? But we didn't. And by doing that, we kind of further doubled down, whereas other companies decided to more directly target perhaps BCOs or shippers, or to do things that eventually created some level of competition, including with logistics services that they provided with those freight forwarders and with those logistics companies. So we decided to take a completely different approach. And, part of kind of the founding principles with OpenTrack really was to be open and transparent, to build real, innovative, deep solutions, and then to give that away to the industry. Obviously, we charge for our service, but to allow that to enable logistics companies to win. And actually, no one else really took that approach. And we bet on the logistics companies, primarily to do that. And what we did, that still wasn't enough. So we went even further. We started to release constantly new features that we gave away for free to logistics companies. We created a completely comprehensive white label platform to allow the logistics companies to be branded on that platform and to provide that service to their customers, the shippers, truckers, warehouses, et cetera, also for free. And then we even quadrupled down on that, and we offered our support and our sales engineers to be part of their team to go out and win business in new RFPs. And so what happened with that was, simply by taking that approach, really to bet on them and their success, they've rewarded us with their long-term loyalty. And so we have, virtually 100% customer retention over a number of years. And these accounts continue to grow tremendously year over year. So the industry, I think, has really rewarded us for having that focus and taking that to heart.
So a couple things just from this past week in Manifest. Unprompted, your name did not, I didn't bring your name up, but I was at a dinner where a 3PL customer of yours was singing your praises, saying you were helping them win business. So this is not just Kevin saying it. It's been independently validated with at least one of his customers. The other thing is I'll say is, I've had conversations with visibility providers who said it's difficult to serve that 3PL market because it's not just the expectations, it's that a lot of times the investment on their side can swing back and forth depending on the vagaries of the market, right? Like if it's a difficult market, one of the first things to go is going to be some line item that they don't deem essential, right? And so, I would say a slightly riskier move to target that side of it, but it means you have to, prove your worth in good times and bad. So
and in terms of the market cycle, so again, the industry, and if you think about it, these companies are rewarded for long-term reliability, relationships with customers, deeply understanding and serving them in tough times, maybe even taking a hit on financially, or doing the right thing for them to win long term, and those customers reward them too. So it's really no different for us because these companies are evaluated on that and rewarded. It's basically the only way to succeed in logistics, right? A long-term approach with a tremendous reputation and the ability to help. And one thing that really helped me to gain confidence in our solution and in our approach was in kind of the bear market trough of 2023.
Yeah.
And we had some a lot of tech companies struggling, and perhaps a mass unwinding of what was seen as perhaps unreasonable pricing, or a little bit, to be honest, greedy, and a little bit too burdensome in terms of pricing. And during that same period, we saw very famous company in the space lost like 70% of its revenue. During that period for us, I think we doubled our business and we retained all of our customers while volume was still low. And I think it was mostly based on our reputation to having met their customer service with everything we have, and to have long-term sustainable pricing that's not aggressive, but more importantly, to be a critical sort of infrastructure for them that was irreplaceable. And so rather than me saying it, the market sort of showed us that was the case. And it was very important to reaffirm our thesis and our approach during 2023.
Yeah, the sustainable pricing piece is interesting. I mean, I think this market, having covered the visibility market for 20 years this year now, obviously seeing the swings of it getting exciting and prices rising, and then it sort of commoditizing back down. And I don't know exactly where we are in that cycle, but very interesting to hear that you sort of like thrived in a period where the pricing was under pressure. What you talked a bit about when we were talking this week, you talked a bit about some learnings from Manifest, from interactions with customers and others that you met with. What would you say were kind of your takeaways, both market wise and then how it directly relates to you?
Yeah, so I think very, very exciting conference, and we talked about I think a really good complement and quite different in terms of the approach and the function from TPM, which I'll also be speaking at coming up. But yeah, I had a great panel at Manifest with some really amazing people. And I think generally, the cool thing is it's really good for the industry. Okay. We need excitement. We need innovation, experiments, and maybe a lot don't work, but that creates such a good foundation for people to become excited about a great industry to work in that can reward you with a really fulfilling long-term career. And so if anything, I mean, my biggest takeaway was, man, I bet this is great for recruiting, right? And
sure, yeah.
So
it makes logistics look fun and exciting for sure.
Yes. And that we can experiment and we can try things that are innovative and different approaches, especially early stage where, the financial consequences are not so great that the risk is worth those investments. And there is really, a chance at achieving great success. But I think prior to my panel at Manifest, I had interviewed some of our large customers at logistics companies broadly. And the interesting thing that came up that I actually sort of underestimated was the real signal and sort of key for adoption of a lot of these technologies starts with the hiring at these large logistics companies. And so that really sort of hit me hard, and I unpacked that a lot. And I thought, well, geez, that makes sense because, first of all, there's a lot of IT priorities that these companies need to maintain simply an insane global footprint of operations. It's not easy to change, for example, a global TMS platform, right? And to make updates and to maintain it for, necessary customer functionality or internal. And so really the key signal is, are we going to see a reprioritization and increased budget for tech hiring especially at big logistics companies as the leading indicator? And I think the answer is yes. And I think the exciting proposition for that is that right now, so not only is that super important, but there are technologies that are really incredible and almost free to use, some of them actually free to use, that can make a big difference at these companies. And you need someone that's internal, trusted, that understands that company's very specific, data security requirements, corporate priorities, customer base, the sort of boundaries that they can operate in order to evaluate those companies and make those decisions. And what's going to happen is they're going to adopt some of those, in-house, especially the low cost ones, which I think are phenomenal, and then make decisions about where is a really good place for a tech partnership with tech companies, because when we try to do this, is it extremely resource intensive, and is there a company out there that's really mastered it and it makes much more efficient sense to partner with sustainable pricing? And so I think those decisions will be made, but really it all begins with the reprioritization of tech talent hiring internally at these particularly large logistics companies, but I think everywhere.
I think one of my takeaways coming out of Manifest was something that I had been thinking a lot over the past few months, because I've just been like inundated with companies, a lot of them really cool, but like really early, that are focusing on very discrete uses of AI around a specific process, like customs entry writing, or information extraction from documents or emails, or workflow kind of automation. It seems incredible the amount of things that are being worked on. It also being on site there's so many discussions about like little things that people were doing, tinkering around with code, and people that are not coders or engineers in their day jobs, right? But like the tools are there now to play around with things and have them interact with existing software, or build some new tool that like screens, just makes them more efficient, like for a few hours a day, right? And so when you mention that about like how logistics companies are going to be hiring, I think it's totally right. I think the shape of the workforce, if not the size as well, is going to be drastically different in just a few years, just based on that. That much is clear. I mean, obviously, clearly all those companies that are coming out of the woodwork with AI are not all going to succeed, but enough of them will that it will make a dent. Just real briefly, we flashed the panel that you're going to be on at TPM. Just give us a 30-second synopsis of what you're going to be discussing at TPM.
Yeah. So I was very, very happy to be invited to speak there at the TPM main conference. It's on the intermodal track, I think. And we'll be discussing kind of the results from the U.S. intermodal market from 2024, where generally we saw great success. And we want to analyze all of the reasons why that success, with a relatively extreme volume similar to 2021 from the West Coast, produced much better outcomes this year in terms of the actual transit times, the availability of equipment and chassis, and no major service breaks, and no major consolidation of vessels at anchor. So there's some analysis we're going to do. We're going to share a lot of cool data and metrics on tracking our global analysis of a full extent of the rail dwell times at many different facilities, and kind of isolating that performance in a way that maybe people haven't seen before.
Yeah, that's going to be a really interesting session. I definitely encourage anyone who's in the intermodal space, or even not and wants to learn more about it, to understand those differences. Like that was something we've been tracking all of last year. Why was 24 so different from 21 in terms of West Coast port fluidity, intermodal service? Why did things break down so much in 21 versus last year? So last question, who's your favorite musician or artist or band? And you have to tell me why.
Yeah. So normally this would be a really tough one. I'm super into music, play multiple instruments, play guitar for most of my life.
Oh, cool.
But today, very easy answer. And I'm going with Cody Johnson, country artist. I'm here in Nashville. And I will be taking my beautiful wife to the concert tonight on Valentine's Day in Nashville.
Oh man, that all synced up. All right, well that's fair. That's fair. The country music's gotten you since you've been in Nashville, huh?
Oh yeah.
Well, cool. Well, congrats, and look forward to seeing you at TPM. Thanks so much for being on the show today, Kevin. Really enjoyed the discussion. And what's the best way for people to reach you?
So I have my LinkedIn. Other than that, I am completely devoid of any social media, but feel free to hit me up there, and of course OpenTrack on LinkedIn as well.
Cool. Yeah, that's probably the smart move to be devoid other than LinkedIn. So I can appreciate that. Have a great weekend and enjoy the concert tonight, and I'll see you in a couple weeks in Long Beach. All right. Great conversation. Kevin's super thoughtful guy. I hope that came across. All right. Dad joke of the week. This is a super dad joke. What kind of concert costs 45 cents? 50 Cent featuring Nickelback. That's a pretty good one, right? Music. I wanted to do the continuity with the music. So in any case, thank you to everyone who attended. Thanks to Mike DeAngelis for popping in the comments. I'll see you in a couple weeks in Long Beach, and hope everyone enjoyed the show. I'll be back in 2 more weeks for the last show right before TPM. Have a great guest who will also be at TPM. If you have any comments, just pop them in here. I read them all. And thanks so much to Nicole, best show producer in the world. Thanks to Sarah and the Let's Talk Supply Chain team for letting me do this. And have a great weekend, everyone. Register for TPM. See you all soon.